Hello, I'm Andrew Forth. I'm the Head of Policy and Public Affairs at the Royal Institute of British Architects. I'm here with a quick update from what has been a really busy week. I've even brought notes because there's so many things to cover. Today I'm going to be talking about four main things. Firstly, this week the government published the Building Safety Bill, which will have huge implications going forward. They also made some changes to the planning system, which I'll get to in more detail later. On sort of more day-to-day things, we submitted a response today to the Brexit Select Committee of the House of Commons to looking at the UK's future relationship with the EU. And we've been doing quite a lot of work on mapping out for government what does a green recovery actually look like when it comes to the built environment. I'm going to start with building safety. As expected, this week the government published the Building Safety Bill. It sets out a lot of good things and some things that we're a bit unsure about, but I guess the main thing to say is it does omit a lot of things. Jane Duncan, who's the chair of our expert advisory group on fire safety, in her response she was very pleased that the government had clarified the functions of the building safety regulator, and it was good to see a sort of clearer explanation of what the health and safety executive's role in building safety is going to be. That being said, we think it needs to go a lot further. In particular, we're concerned that the proposed regulations will only cover high-rise buildings. They won't cover higher risk buildings. I think the most important thing from our perspective is that buildings which are going to include vulnerable people, such as the elderly or children, hotels, things like that, do need to be covered by this legislation. Fire doesn't discriminate, and it's important that everyone can feel safe in whatever type of building they're in. It does sort of highlight one of the bigger problems which this legislation doesn't address, which is the lack of a concerted reform package across government. This is a piece of legislation that's being led by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. The Health and Safety Executive sits within the Department for Work and Pensions. There'll also be some roles for the Home Office, who relate to the fire service, and BAYs, who cover construction. There doesn't seem to be a sort of overarching vision for what the building safety regime is going to look like going forward. I guess you could say that overarching vision is an important thing, but there are areas where maybe it's not great. This week the government published these exciting pieces of legislation which expand what the permitted development regime enables you to do. There were three main things covered. Firstly, it will now be permitted development on most types of house to add up to 2 stories to a normal house. You'll also be able to convert commercial buildings into housing units without planning permission, and most controversially, you'll be able to demolish and rebuild existing commercial buildings. Our response to this, it's fair to say, was very unhappy, and it wasn't just us. We wrote jointly to the Secretary of State alongside the CIOB, RICS and the RTPI, making the point that lots of the buildings which have been delivered through these permitted development schemes are terrible places to live. The only area of concern which the government seemed to address so far is it is now at least harder, but probably still not impossible, to build a house without windows. I don't really know what to say about where the government are going with this. It's pretty terrifying that, even their own advisors have said that this is a bad idea. The Building Better, Building Beautiful Commission earlier this year referred to some of the houses being built as future slums. And in a report published alongside the expansion of permitted development, the academics from UCL highlighted that in general the homes delivered under PDR were poorer quality, smaller and lacked amenity space. Politicians of all sides have been obsessed with the number of new houses, and quality has really fallen down the agenda. I think in this particular case it's a prime example of where the government needs to listen to experts in the field and acknowledge that reforms are needed. Moving on to sort of more traditional bits of work for us, we submitted evidence to the Brexit Select Committee, or the UK's future relationship with the EU Select Committee as it's now called, looking at how the UK's trade is going to be impacted in the case of a no deal. We also wrote to Chancellor Rishi Sunak talking about what does a green economy look like and how can architects get involved. My colleague Phoebe MacDonald has written a really good blog on this, which you can find on our website architecture.com. The other thing to say is that Parliament breaks for summer pretty soon, so We're not sure exactly how much is going to be going on over the summer, but we'll be back to update you whenever there are major announcements. As always, any feedback is really welcome. Comment on the YouTube channel or just drop us an email. It's public.affairs@riba.org.